The hall erupted into whispers. Cameras zoomed in on Kamala Harris, her lips pursed, eyes narrowing as she prepared a response. But Trump wasn't done. He leaned forward, his voice booming now, filling every corner of the debate stage. "Kamala, you say you're the most qualified candidate ever," he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Let's take a look at your track record. You were California's Attorney General, and during that time, violent crime went up. You brag about being tough on crime, but you locked up thousands of people for minor offenses while your own office lost evidence in serious cases. Then you made a career out of smiling on TV while the streets you left behind fell apart." A wave of murmurs rolled through the crowd. The moderator tried to interject. "Mr. Trump, let's allow Vice President Harris." No, Trump cut him off, waving his hand. "She had her say. Now it's my turn." He jabbed a finger in the air, eyes locked on Kamala. "Then you became Vice President, and tell me, what exactly did you do?" "You were supposed to fix the border crisis. How's that going? Millions crossed illegally." "You were supposed to strengthen the middle class, instead. Groceries cost double, gas is through the roof, families can't pay rent." "You call that success?" Kamala's jaw tightened. She tried to maintain composure, but Trump's words were landing like hammer blows. The audience, once solidly cheering her earlier, had fallen silent, waiting, watching. Kamala finally responded, her voice steady but sharp. "Mr. Trump, your version of reality is as distorted as ever. Under your administration, we saw insurrection, division, and the greatest threat to democracy in modern history. The American people remember your chaos. They lived it." The crowd applauded again, louder this time. Kamala smiled, drawing confidence from the reaction. "And as for qualifications, let's not forget, you're a reality TV star who walked into the White House and left it in shambles." A smattering of laughter rippled through the audience. Trump smirked. "Reality TV star," he repeated slowly. "That's funny, because the country was a lot more real under me. Real jobs, real security, real borders. Under you, it's just fake smiles and failed policies." He turned slightly toward the audience. "And by the way, you can call me whatever you want, but the stock market hit record highs under me. Unemployment for African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and women was the lowest in history. I made America respected again. That's not reality TV, that's reality, period." The moderator tried to regain order. "Let's move on to the next question." But Kamala wasn't ready to let him have the last word. She leaned forward, eyes blazing. "Mr. Trump, respected, our allies laughed behind your back. You cozied up to dictators and alienated the world's democracies. You turned America into a late-night joke." Trump chuckled softly, a dangerous, knowing laugh. "You think they laughed behind my back?" he said. "They laughed to your face. You just didn't notice." The audience gasped. Kamala blinked, thrown off balance for a moment. He stepped closer to the edge of his podium, voice steady and resonant now, no longer angry, just deliberate. "Kamala, you talk about being the most qualified ever. But qualification isn't about titles, it's about leadership. When I walked into that Oval Office, I didn't need Washington to approve of me. I changed Washington. You, on the other hand, are Washington. Every bad deal, every failed policy, every broken promise, you're part of that system." Kamala tried to interject, but Trump didn't pause. "You've spent your life playing the game. I spent mine breaking it for the American people." There was a noticeable shift in the room. Even some of the journalists who had entered ready to write glowing headlines for Kamala were now watching him carefully. The confidence in Trump's tone, the sheer force of his delivery, it was cutting through. Kamala straightened up and replied, "You broke the game, all right. You broke trust in our institutions, you broke the truth, and you broke this nation apart. Leadership isn't about making noise, it's about building bridges." Trump smiled thinly. "You've built plenty of bridges, the kind that lead straight off a cliff." The crowd gasped again, half in shock, half in amusement. The moderator raised his voice, trying to calm the room. "Gentlemen and Madam Vice President, let's focus on policy." Trump, ignoring him, turned to Kamala again. "Let me ask you this, if you're the most qualified person ever, why is it that after 3.5 years as vice president, nobody can name a single accomplishment? One thing, just one. What did you do?" Kamala blinked, clearly caught off guard by the bluntness. She hesitated a second too long, and the audience noticed. Cameras zoomed in. Trump's grin widened slightly, sensing blood in the water. Finally, Kamala said, "I worked on restoring international partnerships." Trump interrupted. "You mean the same partnerships that still refuse to respect us? The same ones begging for our money but laughing at your weakness?" She tried again, firmer this time. "We passed the infrastructure bill, helped working families." Trump cut in, louder, and destroyed small businesses with your inflation. The moderator stepped in, exasperated. "Mr. Trump, please allow the vice president to finish her point." But the audience was already murmuring. Kamala's rhythm was gone. Trump had succeeded in throwing her off balance. He leaned back against his podium, exuding confidence now. Voice calm. "Kamala, you're a smart woman, no doubt, but you keep confusing talking points with leadership. America doesn't need another politician telling them how great she is. They need results, and your administration has given them nothing but excuses." Kamala stared at him, visibly controlling her frustration. She knew lashing out would make her look flustered, but staying silent felt impossible. "Mr. Trump," she said, her tone icy, "you speak about results, but the result of your leadership was chaos, economic collapse, a divided nation, and an attack on democracy. Americans haven't forgotten." Trump nodded slowly, eyes locked on hers. "You're right," he said quietly. "They haven't forgotten. They haven't forgotten how strong this country felt before you came along." The silence that followed was heavy, charged with emotion. Even Kamala seemed momentarily unsure of what to say next. Then Trump leaned forward again, lowering his voice to a near growl, the cameras catching every word. "You mock me because it's easy, but deep down, you know the truth. You wouldn't even be on that stage if I hadn't paved the road you're walking on. I changed politics. You're just trying to survive in it." The room froze. Kamala blinked, visibly stunned by the audacity of the statement. The audience erupted, half cheering, half booing. But it didn't matter. The energy had shifted completely. Trump's smirk returned as he straightened his papers, calm and composed, as if he'd just finished a business meeting. Kamala forced a smile, but the confidence that once radiated from her seemed dimmed, her earlier bravado replaced by the cold realization that Trump's words, however controversial, had landed exactly where he wanted them to. And as the moderator's voice echoed, "That concludes our first segment," Trump simply leaned back, folded his arms, and whispered just loud enough for the nearest camera mic to catch, "Most qualified ever." "Huh? We'll see what the people think about that." The audience murmured again, some clapping, some shaking their heads. But one thing was certain. Trump had turned what started as Kamala's confident moment into a night she would not forget. The debate ended, but the storm had only just begun. Within minutes, clips of Trump's final remark, "Most qualified ever," flooded social media. Some users hailed it as a mic drop moment, others called it arrogant, but one thing was undeniable: it dominated every news cycle. Networks replayed the exchange in slow motion, highlighting Kamala's brief hesitation and Trump's predatory confidence. In Washington, Democratic strategists scrambled to control the narrative. Harris's campaign chair, Lisa Porter, was pacing furiously in the back room of their debate headquarters. He ambushed her. Lisa snapped, slamming her palm on the table. "That wasn't a debate. That was a performance." "He knows how to twist the optics." Harris sat nearby, still in her navy blue suit, the debate makeup slightly faded under the bright fluorescent light. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap. "I handled it," she said quietly, though her tone lacked conviction. Lisa looked at her, eyes softening. "You did fine, but we need to move fast. He's turning this into another show, and people love the spectacle." Kamala exhaled slowly. She had seen this before, Trump's uncanny ability to turn controversy into currency. No matter what he said, the spotlight always seemed to bend toward him. By morning, Trump's campaign headquarters in Florida was celebrating. The footage had been edited into a slick campaign ad. "Experience versus results, and you decide." The clip ended with Trump's smirk and Kamala's stunned expression. Trump himself sat in his Mar-a-Lago office, sipping Diet Coke as his communications director briefed him. "Sir, you've got 80 million views on X alone. The phrase 'most qualified ever' is trending. but mostly sarcastically. You flipped it on her. Trump chuckled. She walked right into it, he said, leaning back in his chair. You never tell people how great you are, you show them. And she's been showing failure for 4 years. Later that afternoon, at a rally in Michigan, Trump took the stage to roaring applause. He didn't waste time. Did you guys see the debate? He asked, smiling broadly as the crowd erupted. She said she's the most qualified ever. Can you believe that? He made a mock expression of shock, holding his hands up. I mean, really most qualified ever? Even more than George Washington? Even more than Abraham Lincoln? That's a good one. The crowd roared with laughter. He paced slowly, voice rising with each line. She's been in office 3.5 years, and look at the country. You can't afford groceries. The border's a disaster, and our enemies are laughing. If that's qualification, then I guess we need a lot more unqualified people like me. Chants of Trump, Trump, Trump filled the air. Cameras panned across the crowd, thousands waving flags, cheering, shouting. Meanwhile, in a quiet corner of the White House, Kamala Harris watched the rally footage with her communications team. The mocking tone cut deep, not because she hadn't heard worse, but because it was working. Her favorability ratings, which had already been fragile, had dropped another 2 points overnight. Her chief strategist sighed. You need to hit back hard, something emotional, something that shows leadership, not defensiveness. Kamala turned toward him. I don't want to get dragged into his circus. Then he wins the circus, he replied simply. That night, she filmed a statement. In it, she stood behind the presidential seal, speaking firmly into the camera. Leadership is not about mockery, she said. It's about responsibility. Donald Trump continues to insult, belittle, and divide, but Americans deserve better than a show. They deserve someone who fights for them. The message aired on every major network, but something about it felt a broken bar, muted. It didn't capture the same raw energy as Trump's rally. The next morning, Trump's team released another video. This one was even more brutal, a montage of Harris saying I'm the most qualified ever, spliced with images of border chaos, inflation headlines, and clips of foreign leaders laughing. The ad ended with Trump's voice, qualified to fail. It went viral instantly. Even mainstream anchors, trying to remain neutral, began using the phrase Harris's qualification claim in their reporting. Every repetition only strengthened Trump's framing of the debate. By the third day, Harris knew she needed a counterstrike. She appeared on a primetime interview with CNN, determined to reclaim her ground. The host asked the question she dreaded. Madam Vice President, your opponent said that experience doesn't mean qualification, that your results as vice president are proof of failure. How do you respond? Kamala smiled thinly. My response is simple. I've dedicated my life to public service, protecting families, defending democracy, and rebuilding America. If he thinks that's failure, then maybe success to him means chaos. The host nodded politely, but the response didn't go viral. Trump's did. Again, the very next day, he gave another speech, this time addressing her directly. Kamala, you've been in Washington your whole life. You had every chance to fix it. You didn't. You had every chance to help Americans. You didn't. You talk about democracy, but you silence anyone who disagrees with you. You talk about rebuilding, but all you've done is break trust. The people are tired of your speeches, they want strength again. It wasn't just political theater anymore, it was psychological warfare. Privately, Kamala felt the pressure mounting. Every day her aides brought new polls, new headlines, new doubts. The phrase most qualified ever that once made her sound confident now felt like a curse. She replayed the debate moment in her mind over and over. The smirk, the silence, the applause that followed his jab. Late one night, she sat alone in the vice president's residence, the city lights flickering through the window. Her husband, Doug, approached quietly. You okay? She nodded faintly. He's turning it into a joke. Doug sat beside her, then stopped playing his game. Change the story. She looked up, thoughtful. Change the story. The next morning, Kamala's team announced a surprise town hall event in Detroit, a same state Trump had rallied in days earlier. No podiums, no prepared speeches, no teleprompter. Just Kamala, a microphone, and real voters. When she stepped on stage that evening, the crowd was smaller, but intimate. She spoke differently this time, and no rehearsed talking points, no grand gestures. "You've heard a lot about qualifications this week," she began softly. "But let me tell you what qualifies me. It's not titles or offices. It's being the daughter of immigrants who worked 3 jobs. It's fighting for justice when the odds were against me. It's standing up for people who never had a voice." There was no cheering, just quiet attention. She continued, voice breaking slightly. "He mocks me, fine, but he's mocking you, too. Every teacher, every nurse, every mother who's ever worked hard for something, because he thinks only loudness is strength. But real strength to broken bar is quiet. It's steady. It's the ability to keep standing when they try to knock you down." The room erupted in applause, not the wild, chanting kind, but heartfelt, emotional. For the first time since the debate, she felt the tide begin to shift, however slightly. By midnight, clips from the town hall were spreading. Hashtags like #QuietStrength and #KeepStanding began trending. Even a few conservative commentators admitted that was her best moment yet. Trump's campaign noticed. He watched the clip in silence, then set his drink down. For a moment, his smile faded. "She's learning," he muttered. But even he knew the battle wasn't over. The election trail had only begun, and the clash between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump was no longer just about politics or policy. It had become something far larger, a war over tone, truth, and the soul of American leadership itself. And though Trump had drawn first blood, Harris had finally found her footing. The next debate, everyone knew, would not be the same.